PhD is a very lonely journey. We all have our individual journeys, and it gets very lonely and depressing at times. You get dejected when you spend months sending something to your supervisor and they tell you, oh my God, what you've written doesn't make any meaning. We all go through that, and you need people to support you at those critical periods. Many students don't know that there's something like student well-being. They really help stand out. And I think this PGR network too is a way, that we can support ourselves. Yeah, so yeah, it's very important to have both external and internal support.
I think it's really important to build up a network of support. I've done it through presenting. I presented at Cambridge last year, and part of Ruskin, they give you Ruskin Gallery for exhibition of your work. So I've done that. So presenting with other like-minded PhD researchers through the synopsis theorem, it's such an advantage, because they will, at the end of your sort of presentation, will come up and go, have you read this? Do you know this? This is my email. So you've got all this extra knowledge that people are sort of there for you. And I'm going back again this year, so they've accepted me again for presenting this. I contacted a wonderful artist in Canada, Anthea Dyke. I didn't think she was going to get back to me. She's 81 now, and she's one of Canada's top artists. She works with bees, because I'm thinking of like golden joinery with honey. So that's the way I'm working with that one. But I didn't think she'd get back to me. She did. So we're in constant sort of, we contact each other all the time, send each other emails. And she's actually answered some of my PhD research questions I asked. And she's done that for me. She's amazing. She's always asking about my work as well. So I always see her like another little supervisor almost, like a little mentor. Getting you little feelers out there again, and sort of not being afraid to give it a go. If they don't get back to you, they don't. But if they do, they might know someone who might know someone who might know someone. You build yourself up a network that way.
I think it's impossible to do anything in life, never mind a PhD, without a support network. And part of my advice would be, make sure your support network is behind you before you start the PhD. Your support network needs to understand why you're doing it. And sometimes you might not have explained it very well, and you might need to explain it several times over the course of the PhD. But if you get the right support network, they can make a massive difference, because they will be your cheerleaders. They will be the people who you can call up when you're really struggling. Those people who've known you before, during and after the PhD, those are the people who are actually really, really helpful when it comes to recognising how far you've come. So having a support network who are able to reflect back the progress that you've made, reflect back your reasons for doing it in the first place when you might have forgotten, they can really help you to keep pushing forward and keep going, and to know that you're going to get to the end.
So having a support network, I think, is one of the most important, if not the most important thing in a PhD. I always talk about communication, about talking to other people, and having a support network, regardless of whether this is part of the university or outside of the university, is really important for me, for mental health and well-being. But also so that I don't feel isolated and lonely. I think a PhD journey can feel very lonely at times, because even though you are surrounded by other PhD students, because we are all doing our projects in very, very different areas, and our journeys can be similar, but sometimes they feel so different, and that can feel very isolating sometimes. So a support network, online, on campus, or outside externally, is always great. It works both ways, so supporting someone else as well as people supporting you. I think through supporting other people and seeing that they're sometimes going through a difficult time, you also learn a lot about yourself. And I find it always really funny how when I'm facing a problem, and I can't seem to solve it, but when someone else is facing a very similar problem, all of a sudden I become an extremely logical, wise person, but I can't apply that to myself. But having that return, and you just build relationships and friendships throughout the journey, and that's really important. And then knowing that, somewhere down the line, in 2 months' time or so, when I'm facing something very difficult, knowing that there is someone that can support me through that is great. And
I think it's really important to have a support network, both in university and outside. I do think you need that support network of people that understand what you're going through and understand why it might be the small things that have got you down that day, or the processes that are really hard to explain to someone when you get back home.
Yes, ever since the first day of my PhD, I've been told PhD is a very lonely journey. And yes, I am pretty sure if there is an internal external network where PhD students could come together as a group and access support from each other, that will be very important, and that will bring more, positive energy to everyone. Yes, I guess it's always nice to have a network where students will be able to do networking with other professionals. Like, they could basically sell or promote their PhD projects to gain attention from the field, instead of just keeping the research to themselves. And I guess it would take effort, like a joint university, or even with an organization that brings most researchers together to have this impact.
I think it's really important to have a support network, whether that's people, just a support net, your own social support network that you have, but also a support network that's maybe a bit more specialized in what you're doing, because it might be, you might have experiences that other people cannot relate to. So having a support network of people who are doing the same thing, who might have the same experiences and sometimes negative experiences, can be really important to find comfort in other people experiencing the same. I do think it's important to build a professional network because we're all doing this with the idea of going on doing this professionally, making this our career. So building it early on is really important. But to be honest, I don't think I've really done that very well so far.
I totally think it's important to have a support network. You cannot do it on your own. You may think you can, but you can't. I think it's really important to have people on your side, people on your team, all those cliches. Not everybody's got that, I do appreciate that, but if you can, your family, your friends, if they want to, sometimes they will listen to you moaning or being upset, but they don't really always understand what you're talking about. That's okay. I still use my I'm still in touch with my old undergraduate friends, and we are, they can sort of empathise with me a little bit. But I think it's important to communicate with people how you're feeling. Once you get here, if you're based heavily in the institution, some people work remotely. I do know that some people work from home, some people online students. But if you are embedded within the institution and you have to come into uni quite a lot, I think it's really important to have a strong support network, be part of the PGR community, have people you can talk to, and perhaps have a cup of tea with our 5 minutes out, talk about something stupid about Netflix or whatever, just to have a minute, really. I think it would be quite foolish to try and go it alone, because at times it's really hard, and the support networks, whether internal or external, whether they're online or in person, I just think they're so important, and without those I don't think you could probably progress and thrive as well. I certainly couldn't get on. When those times are hard, it's sometimes nice to have someone to say, go on, you can do it, or it's okay, why don't you just take 5 minutes, or it's all right, you've been doing that for hours today. Just to have that supportive network around you to help you just get up and do it for another day, to keep going. It must be very difficult I've been in a period of time where I didn't feel very supported, and it makes everything 100 times harder. So I think having that support, even if you don't always need it, just knowing it's there is really nice and encouraging.
I think it's really important to have a support network during your PhD, whether that's your friends, family, supervisors, other colleagues at the university. It's always good after you've had a hard day to have a little moan with your friends, especially other PhD students who could be going through similar issues, but not just people going through similar problems to you, but people who are completely unbiased from different areas of life, such as your family. It's really useful.
It's always useful to have support networks, and I probably feel I've got them if I need them somewhere, but I tend to be fairly independent and work things out myself. I guess I've always got my supervisors, and like I said, I've always got PhD colleagues, and I always feel they're there. And I know I've asked lots of questions, and people have generously given their answers, and so I always feel safe. But if you ask the question about do PhD students need a support network, I would say absolutely yes. Even if they never use it, knowing it's there would be great. I'm just not the personality type that would choose a support network first. I tend to plod along on my own more. But it's nice to know I've got good supervisors and good PhD colleagues that I can turn to if I need to.